Fellas, welcome to the show.
My man, happy birthday.
Dude, yeah, thank you.
We have to celebrate that.
So those listening, it's not actually my birthday, but it is the birthday of the show that we're recording this episode. And this will come out probably in 2 weeks, but 6 years. So it's been 6 years in the podcast game. And we were discussing before we record. I feel like an OG. Like, this one feels special. This anniversary feels really, really special. The fact that I'm still here and I'm honored that anybody listens, let alone the amount of people that do. And so a nod to all of you listening for however long. And I'm sure there's people here from the very beginning, and that's kind of mind blowing, but you guys are on the same trajectory. 2 years in, you guys are about to hit the 2-year mark a couple of days away from now. So happy birthday to you guys as well. This is also 6 years in. This is the first time I'm interviewing brothers. So that's a whole new level.
Oh boy. And maybe I'm going to up it there. Brothers with the same name. I don't think. Yeah, that's ever happened.
Exploring new territories.
That's exactly where I want to start. I'm sure you guys talk about this on all the shows you go on. So you're both named Luis. This is mind blowing to me. I got introduced to you by some dear friends who the show know, both Brian Bogert and Adam Shively. And they're both named Luis. I'm like, how the hell do you tell them apart? So let's talk about that for a second. So what is going on here? Why you guys both have the same name?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not something that we only talk about in podcast every single time, but it's something that we talk about when we meet somebody.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, are you guys brothers and with the same name? What was your mom thinking? So
she was a marketing genius. That's what I'm going to put out there. She was a marketing genius.
That's the story we tell right now. We're like, our mom was an awesome marketer. And thanks to her, we've managed to, have the best pattern interrupt that you can ever have at any conference in the world. So, actual story, back home, we're from Venezuela. It's actually not that uncommon to, share names. And usually families, right? The grandparent has the same name as your dad, and then the dad names the kid the same name. So that was the case with my dad, right? He had a first marriage, and his first son his name is Mario. My dad name is Mario. My grandfather name is Mario. We actually have a sister that her name is not Mario, but is French, is Marion, right? So when my dad married my mom is like, hey, guess what? No more Marios in this family. And she had us both of us, and she was like, Luis and Luis.
There's a middle name. There's a middle name in there that back home, both names make the full name. So that's why it's not weird back home. But yeah, anyways.
So obviously going forward, as people listening to this, I'm going to refer to you guys as Luis and Fonzi.
Yes.
And so Luis, so I'm going to refer to Luis as Luis. Now this is where it gets confusing. I'm not talking to Fonzi. I'm talking to Luis. What is your middle name?
Daniel. So good friends, back home, like my full nickname, I guess, is Luisda. So that's where like you see like all my handles is Luisda, because Luis Daniel. And but the handsome thing with a beard, Fonzi.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
He was not happy with that nickname for a long time, but now he is. He's famous now.
Yeah, I had another choice than embracing Fonzie.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a great name. Like, that's one that you go, okay, if I had to choose my name, that might be on the list. Like, it might be on the short list of like the names I'm going to pull from.
Hey, I appreciate it. But check this out, right? Like, when it started, it wasn't with the Happy Days Fonzie, as a reference. It was more as Luis Fonzi, Despacito, the singer, as a reference. And I was like, I'm not a fan, I don't really want to be, kind of like related in some sense to Luis Fonzi. So my brother knew that I hated that nickname, and nobody back home ever called me like that. Nobody. And we were working together at this gym, and everybody was like, how do we distinguish between the two of you? And my brother saw that as an opportunity. His eyes just shined, just like, wing. And he's like, I know what to say to piss my brother off. And he's like, you can call him Fonzie. And I turned out, I was like, no, there's no way you guys can call me Fonzie. And everybody's like, wow, Fonzie, it's a great name. And everybody started calling me Fonzie, until one day, one of the coaches was like, what? That is an awesome nickname. I love it. And I was like, why? And they were like, Happy Days. Haven't you seen it? The fonts is so cool. And me being Venezuelan, I was like, I've never seen Happy Days. I have no idea what you're talking about. So I went to YouTube Academy, right? Started typing, let me learn a little bit about Happy Days. And I saw a few clips of the fonts, and I became a fan. and I decided to embrace
next
the
weekend.
nickname.
Next weekend, he was out in the bars with a shirt with Fonzi's face.
Yeah, I bought a shirt with the fonts.
Yeah,
I love it.
So a few years ago.
You're like, hey,
Yeah,
dude. The best part is I think I'm older. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm pretty sure I'm older than you. So I'm 37. You guys are in your 20s, I'm guessing, right?
I'm 32 actually.
I'm
29.
geez,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So I didn't watch Happy Days either, right? That's before my time. I kind of knew what it was. And then you guys remember the band Weezer?
I had no idea.
sounds familiar.
So it's a popular band in the 90s, and they're still around today. They come out with some stuff. But they're a popular band in the late 90s, and they came out with a song. I can't remember the name of the song, but the music video is literally the Happy Days people. So I remember the music video and being like, oh my gosh, and Fonzie's in it, and he does like this dance and he does all these things. But excited to have this conversation with you guys beyond your names, beyond all
the name. Yeah, we just spent 30 minutes just talking about the name.
The title of this show, what it's like being named like your brother. But yeah, no, I'm excited because you guys are really changing the game in the podcast space, right? As I look at what I've done over the last 6 years, starting where I had no idea what I was doing to being able to build a business. And I've gotten over the course of the show, over $100,000 in sponsorships and all these really cool things that I've been able to do, but it was all by chance. Now, you guys saw this space 2 years ago and said, hey, there's opportunity here to create relationships, to create business, to create networking opportunities, all these things. And you guys have absolutely hit it out of the park, right? 2 years in, being in the same circles that I'm in. I mean, it shows people listening that you guys have figured it out, which is really, really cool. But before we get into what you guys do with Content as Profit and all these other things, I want to talk about what it's like, out of curiosity, doing business with family, because sometimes that's a big no-no for people, right? Don't do it. It ruins relationships. It does all that stuff. What has it done for you guys as brothers?
What has it done for you, Fonz?
I'm just gonna say that is the second question we usually get is like, how is it working with your brother?
We've actually
I'm glad I'm unique with my questions.
By the way, this is super hilarious. We've been in podcasts that they interview couples, like married couples, and they're like, we want to interview you guys. And we're like, we have to be very clear. We are not married. We are brothers in business. Yeah. And but it's
in Venezuela, they name brothers the same, but they don't marry brothers.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. They don't.
Fortunately. Yes. Yeah, that's good. Honestly, I personally never thought about that as an issue, about what is it going to be working with my brother? Are we going to have a challenge, right? And again, I honestly wasn't that exposed to entrepreneurial messages before starting something. So for me, the clear choice was to start something with the person that I had as a roommate and that I would see every single day, and that I trusted the most. So I was like, yeah, sure, cool. Let's start something together, right? Now, as we started working together, you start hearing all these things. And personally, I don't know what's going on in those families, but I'm like, we barely had any issues, if I'm being honest, right? Like the moments that have been high tension, that we might have challenges, at the end of the day, we sit down and we're like, let's talk about it. Like communication is key, and it can solve any challenge that you may have. And guess what? Sometimes I can feel it. I can come in the room and I feel the environment a little bit tense and dark. And I'm like, okay, no work. Let's talk about it. What's going on? And he's the same way. When he sees me, sad, heartbroken because, I maybe fought with my girlfriend or whatever. He's like, okay, we're not in the zone to do good work right now. Let's chat about it. Let's talk about it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's about having good communication. And let me clarify this too. If you have something you can share besides work, which I'm guessing with your brothers or sisters, right? Like you probably do have a lot of those activities to do. It's really cool because now you're just not talking about work, but hey, let's disconnect. Yesterday, let's play some video games, and we go and play video games together.
Yeah, I think a big element too is prioritizing, right? For us, family comes first always. So every time there's an argument or there's a discussion, or like if there's a potential of like this going south very quickly, we quickly remember, be like, hey, we're family first, right? We cannot do this. What's the why, right? And there's a bigger why, right? For us is to keep our family together. Maybe, I don't know if that's a Hispanic trait, right? Where we're from. But it's united us. It's created great opportunities, not only for us, but for other people. So now we have to be thinking about not just us to, but the people that maybe a decision can affect, maybe the team, maybe the clients that we work with, right?
Yeah.
And it's just bigger, right? So we have to be those bigger people.
For example, I have this little picture in here that I carry with me. I put it on my notepad every morning, and so every time I open it, I see it, and it says, "Who needs me in my A game?" And if you flip it, it's a picture of my brother, my mom, my dad, right? And when my girlfriend saw that, she was like, interesting. And I was like, don't worry, babe. maybe you'll make the cut there one day. Who knows?
Yeah, but one day you may be in that photo. I love it. So what does being in your A game mean to you guys?
You know, being in the A game is just being in the mental space to do good work, right? And I've procrastinated a few times, and it is realizing that I have power over those circumstances, and that when I catch myself drifting, guess what? Maybe I need a break, and I need to recognize that it's okay to give myself a break, so then I can come back and do good work, right? Being in my A game means the people that we're trying to help, am I actually helping them? Am I serving them to the best of my abilities, right? Being in the A game is, at the end of the day, am I being happy with what I'm doing as well? Because if I'm just sitting down doing something that makes me miserable, I'm not serving either the clients, or at the end of the day, it's not going to be good for my family, because when they get to talk to me, I'm just going to be in a crappy mood.
Yeah. For me lately has been being in a mode of awareness, right? So many times we just run this like automatic life, and we react to certain things, right? We establish these relationships that we don't really know what they mean, right? Or we react to certain situations in a very specific way, sometimes very negatively. So lately, that has been like my focus in the last like 3-4 weeks has been like, I need to be very aware of the situation, whether that's with myself or with somebody else. It normally, spoiler alert, it has to do with yourself, and just making sure that you can make that change. Like, okay, I spotted this situation. What can I do better? What can I execute on? For example, like this morning was the first time in a long time that I was up doing work at 5:30 a.m. For most people, that thing sounds horrible, right? For me, it's great because guess what? At 3 p.m., 4 p.m., I'm done with my thing, and then I can go enjoy some video games with Fonzi. Maybe, I hang out with Luca, my 3-year-old son. We go to the park, we play some soccer, right? Before, that was not a thing. It was not a possibility. So those are the things that really move me forward.
Dude, I love it. 5:30 sounds awful. I'm just throwing it out there.
Sounds good.
My game is start working at 8:00 and be done by 2:00. So that's the game. So we just narrow it down, because 5:30 is rough. But I noticed, Fonzie, you said earlier, you guys weren't introduced to entrepreneurship, but clearly you were drawn to it. Where did that come from for you guys? Because I'm always intrigued by individuals who fall in love with this idea of entrepreneurship, even if they're not really sure what it's all about.
Yeah. Here in the States, I think right now, entrepreneurship, I think, is like the new rapper. That's like
dude, it really is.
Everybody's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. But also, I mean, the country has a history of entrepreneurship, innovators, right? It's just like people trying to build amazing stuff. Back home, it wasn't like that, or at least we weren't in the circles that operated in that way, right? Like, our mom, she is a college teacher, and then our dad, he had somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit here and there, but he used to work in oil fields at first, and then kind of like went into insurance. When we were little, he did have a business that didn't work out at the end, but then we really never saw him kind of like trying to take that leap and start something new. Then the education system is very traditional, right? You just go to school, you take your classes, but there's nothing talking about entrepreneurship. So for us, we just grew up in kind of like that environment. Now looking back at it, we did notice, we kind of like had traits of entrepreneurship that we're grateful that our parents didn't kind of like shut off. They encourage us to do it. So for example, if we had soccer cleats that we wanted to get rid of them, that we were like, let's sell this. I need some money, right? Or this one is kind of like our favorite one to share, but we needed some money, and our parents, this is where they did pretty good. They didn't give us the money. They were like, figure it out. Yeah. And we decided to go to school, see who wanted soccer jerseys, and then we would go to this little kind of like this little market that sold counterfeit t-shirts and soccer jerseys, right? And we would buy them for very cheap, and then we would go to school and resell them, right? So total arbitrage right there. But
Yeah,
we
totally.
didn't know it at the moment. We were just like, okay, we're just making a profit in here. We're just making some money that we need for the movie theater. And when we look back at it, we're like, we were solving problems, right? Even the problem was just, I want to make more money at that time. And as we grew up, we reached out for, right, we wanted a scholarship here in the US. That's how we came to this country in soccer scholarship. And we realized like, we did a bunch of outbound sales to get the opportunity. We literally got a list of 200, 300 schools, NCAA, and we cold email every single coach of every school with a video showing them and selling yourself, hey, do you have a spot on your team that I can be a part of, right? Wow. And again, once we get introduced to the whole entrepreneurship, start your own business, we look back at those stories and we're like, we did have a few trades that we're glad our parents encouraged, right? To go figure it out instead of putting us a stop, or instead of just giving us the money right there at the moment. And I think that's, kind of like how we were eventually introduced into that world.
Dude, I love that. Now, obviously, how long have you guys been full-time entrepreneurs?
Define full-time entrepreneurs.
You're not relying on a day job to help pay the bills.
September 2019 was when I quit my full-time job. Fonzi has been a full-time since the inception of BizRose, like 7 years ago.
More on the freelancing side at first, rather than a business.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I get it. So I love hearing that because, when you look at, okay, I took the leap. I mean, Luis, you have a 3-year-old son. That's scary, right? Like, it's not only just you taking the leap into entrepreneurship. This is your family. This is your wife. This is your child. This is all these things. So what was that moment like for you? Was it a freeing moment? Was it a stressful moment? Was it a thing we talked about, before I hit record?
It was freeing. It was exciting. It was terrifying at the same time. Luke at the time, he was a few months old. And I remember I had this job that I loved. I used to manage boutique fitness studios. So we had a big network here in Florida where I live, and I loved every second of it. And then there was a moment where they brought somebody in that we were butting heads in different processes, different things, and the environment was not the right one. I didn't see kind of like a way to continue. Love and adore the ownership group because they gave us so many opportunities. That's how Fonzi came into this world as well. They were one of our first clients, big time clients. So they gave us a ton, but it got to a time where I had to make that call, mainly because I remember walking into the apartment one night and Katie, my wife, she's like, hey, where's Luis? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not Luis, it's Fonzi. I'm like, no. Where's Luis? Where's my husband? Right. And I'm like, man, why are you saying that? And it was a change of mood. Right. I was complaining all the time. I was not happy. I was nappy. And everybody around me could notice it. And we had to look inward. And, my commitment to her, she was going through pharmacy school at the time, was like, hey, I really want to do this thing, like entrepreneurship. Like I could legit just be living in my car. I do not care. Like we're both like that. But obviously I understand the responsibility of you, of our kid, or of like a place to live. So my commitment to you is like, I'm going to have a job. I'm going to still work on this thing on the side. When we did the stickers, when we did the printing t-shirts, we were printing t-shirts till like 3-4 a.m. in the morning. We hated the process, but that was the thing that we're doing at the time. Right. And she understood everything, and she like has been massive support. And then when I told her, like, look, like I cannot do this anymore. Like she was about to finish school. I think a period of like 7 months or so. And what I decided to do was go get a personal loan. And I'm like, look, this is the money. Like, this is the money. Like, we're not going to starve, right? I'm going to figure out a way on how I'm going to repay this thing. But I need to get out of this environment so we could go all in into this thing. And that was September 2019, which, funny story, the day I quit was the day that ownership group hired us back to do the thing, right? So it was like, it was scary at the time, but also very exciting because we're trying these new things. And then shortly after, like that weekend, we invested the most amount of money that we've ever done in a mastermind. Basically half of my personal loan went to that. She did not know that. She learned that like a year later, but it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Here's why it worked out. And then people can hear this by hearing you guys talk. It's because you did the work, right?
Yes.
So many people invest their time in events, listening to podcasts, masterminds, coaches, all these things. And then they don't do the work and they don't see the return on their investment. You guys were like, hey, look, high risk. We need to make sure we have a massive reward. And not many people look at that as a consideration, right? So how important do you feel it is to take a massive risk in order to find a reward in entrepreneurship?
I think we might have different answers.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's looking back at a track record. My feeling says not as important, but looking back at a track record, I think it put us in a position of positive pressure where you have to execute, right? It's like, if it's the right thing, if it's the thing that you want to do, it's going to help you do that. I remember a time close to when we were starting that mastermind, there was a period where we didn't have to make a payment on this thing. And we're feeling pretty comfortable. We're cruising, right? And the payment was very significant. And I remember getting the phone call and they were like,
it wasn't a phone call. They sent us a picture
to
Instagram Messenger with a sign like, hey, we're ready to start getting your payments.
Oh my God. What kind of sharks did you get a loan from? I've never heard of this tactic before.
No. That's not the loan. This is the mastermind. So what happened is,
got it.
They were super successful at selling this mastermind, and the bank shut down their processing for months. So they couldn't process any payments,
but they were fulfilling
like during those months. So we're executing, we're grabbing traction, we're like figuring things out, right? But we weren't executing as fast as we should have, right? And that day, I remember we saw a picture. I legit, like, my soul left my body, and I'm like, man, like, and I remember the expression. And we were interviewed by them in this massive show, and they were asking us this question. I'm like, it feels like we're between the sword and the wall, and we haven't moved. If you don't move, you die. So it's like, I've identified in myself certain moments in my life where I'm in that position and I move and I survive, and we thrive right after, you move, you get out of the situation, we thrive. So I'm like, okay, now how can we systematically put ourselves in that situation so we can execute? Or do we actually need to be putting ourselves in that situation to execute, right? So that's a question that we have, but for us, it has helped us being in certain situations like that. Also, we were in a situation like that we didn't execute, and it bit our butts big time. So it's like identifying those moments, but at the end of the day, we have to execute, right? Whether you're in that position or whether you're not, you have to execute.
I think it's a situational, circumstance right there, because like my brother said, there was a moment where we did another pretty big investment and then we didn't take action, and it hurt us more. We were in a better position, so it wasn't as painful. But I do believe you don't necessarily need that experience to take action. I do believe that somebody can just look at the resources that you can find online, listen to podcasts, and take action and be extremely successful, right? Some people might need a little bit more of that positive pressure that my brother is talking about, but I do think there's a payoff, right? Like, that positive pressure gives a lot of stress at times, right? It's kind of like waiting in school for the last hour at night to do your homework that you need to turn the next day, and you're stressed out of your mind, and then you cannot sleep, and it's just, sometimes it's not as enjoyable. Well, it's the same thing with that positive pressure sometimes. So now the thing is, we can all change, right? I think we went through this experience and we learned. The good thing is, okay, let's look back at it. Let's reflect on the experience. What did we learn? And then ask yourself, and be honest with yourself. Can we actually take action without having to put ourselves in those situations? And I feel like what we found out lately is yes. Again, it took us a few years to learn this, which, looking back at it, we're grateful. But then at the same time, we're like, oh man, that was rough. Like, why do we put ourselves in those situations, right? Like, we are literally our biggest, we sabotage ourselves, our biggest enemies out there.
Yeah.
So now I feel like we're trying to operate from more of a, like my brother says, a place of power, right? Okay, let's acknowledge what we have, be aware of, the circumstances, and then where do we want to go, and then take action accordingly. That being said, let me know. Hey, let me tell you, there's plenty of bumps on the road.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I think people look at what I've done in podcasting and in business, and they're like, wow, you figured it out. I'm like, well, no, there's still stresses every single day. It might look different, right? But the stress and the bumps are still there. And I think too, that shift of having your back up against the wall versus being able to take action without your back up against the wall, it's because you saw what your positive actions can create, and then you have a vision to where you want to go. I think the part that people lack when they can only move when their back is up against the wall is lack of vision, like lack of where are we going, because there's nothing pushing them to take the action, or they don't even understand what the action they need to take is, right? And so they do it from a fear-based place. So that's such a huge thing to bring up, because vision is something that's so important. That brings me to what Biz Bros is, what content is profit is, and all that stuff. What's your vision with what you guys are building now in the podcast space and around the business around that?
Sure. That's a question that we keep asking ourselves every single day, right? Like, it has evolved so much. When I was actually in an interview earlier and we're talking about this, they were like, hey, what's a Hail Mary? Like, what was a Hail Mary in your business? The podcast was a Hail Mary, because March 2020, we had no podcast. We had like a couple challenges internally that we did called 45 Live. It was just us two, and it was our way to publish, because we got called out when we're selling the service, and they were like, where's your stuff? And we're like, oh, we're not going to take this. We're actually going to go publish. Right. And at the time we were freelancing. It was just us like executing for the clients. And pandemic happens. All the small businesses that we're serving closed. And I freaked out because I was the one looking at the spreadsheets. Fonzi goes like, hey, slap me twice and go take a walk. And then when we came back, he's like, look, this is very positive situation here, because we were also trying to get away from some of those clients, right? Because it was not serving either relationship. What are we going to be doing now? We have 60 days of runway cash in the account. Like, this is very scary. So, at the time people were like, why don't you guys start a podcast? You guys should be publishing. And we went through all this thing of highly produced show that we tried, and it didn't work out because there was a lot of friction. We had the 2 cameras, the time cameras, the audio, the editing, blah, 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 that prevented us from putting the content out there. So we made a very conscious decision that day we're going to start a podcast, that we're going to be doing it live, because there was no friction on production in that sense. And then that we're going to be doing it. Did I say it 3 times a week already?
No.
That we're going to be doing it 3 times a week.
Yeah, we actually model after one of our clients at the moment. He had a podcast 3 times a week, and we saw that he was doing pretty good. So we're like, well, we got a bunch of time back, so I'm pretty sure we can do 3 times a week too. Yeah, there was literally no strategy with it. We were like, we're just gonna start publishing, put our message out there, and then people will find us. That was literally it, right? And we started talking. By episode 20, we're like, dude, what else are we gonna say? We'd already said everything we needed to say. What about we bring one of our friends? So we brought a local friend, and we did an episode with him. And then we realized, this is fun. What if we bring or coach, right? The one that we gave a whole bunch of money, right? And he put some positive pressure in her life. What if we bring him on the show? And that's when I would say it clicked. That was the moment for us that it was like, this is what content is profit is going to be. Because we were talking about, okay, how do we surprise him? He's pretty big on the, the marketing world. So we're like, how do we surprise him? What if we make a cool intro and we bring him on, kind of like if he was speaking on stage, and we've seen him speak on stage before. So we're like, oh, I remember I have this song that he uses. I love that song. So we downloaded the song, we loaded into the Roadcaster, and then we're like, what are we writing here? Let's make it funny, right? Let's talk about his big eyes. And we started like making jokes about him. And obviously at the same time, kind of like showcasing some of the stuff that he's done. And as we were writing this, I remember we look at each other and we're like, is this too much? Like, is he going to log off halfway through the intro? And our reaction was, who cares? We told to ourselves, like, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't like it, whatever, we'll do a solo episode. And then if he enjoys it, awesome. We just keep going with the interview. And we had him on the, on our screen on the back. We started talking about the intro and the music. And we were just, talking about his big eyes and whatnot. And I remember as soon as we pressed the button that we call his name, he's like, welcome. And we pressed this song that he walks out from stage every single time. His eyes went as big as I've ever seen them. He was like, oh. And when he came up, he was like, guys, this is the best intro I've ever seen. or heard in a podcast. And at that moment, we both look at each other, and I think it connected on a mind level, you know, kind of like how
brother with the same name,
yeah,
mind
that brotherhood connection. We look at each other and we, you know, just kind of like I forgot the word.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens when
your English is very good looking, Fonzi.
Yeah, that's telepathy. English is your second language.
Telepathy.
Telepathy, right? We communicate and we told each other this is what we're gonna do for every single guest. And after the conversation went absolutely amazing, and we started doing it with every one of our guests. Eventually, we managed to bring Todd Brown. I remember, it was like episode 50. I read his book. I kind of like leveraged some social media interaction. I was like, yo, Todd, you got to come to the podcast. It's absolutely amazing. We had X, Y, and Z. We totally leveraged those names because we had like 10 people listening to the podcast. And Todd was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this. He jumps on the show. I'm not kidding. I have this voice note. Like I caught that segment of the podcast and I have it on my phone for when I'm feeling down. I listen to that thing and I can go to sleep happy. Todd at the end of the show said, like, guys, I don't really like say much about other people, but he's like, the way you guys run this show, the way you guys put this together, he's like, you guys are going to make it far. Dude, I'm not kidding. Our skin did like goosebumps everywhere. We were about to cry talking to Todd Brown towards the end. And I think that's when we noticed like, okay, we need to stick with this.
Yeah.
This is absolutely amazing. But, you know, going back to the original question, the vision, we didn't really have that vision at first. The vision came through action, right? We started taking action and then we started realizing the benefits. We didn't have this whole massive plan of, yes, we're going to connect with the people that we bring on the podcast and we're going to become their best friends. And then we're going to have the awesome network that we have right now. No, like for us, it's like we were intimidated to bring these people on the show. And then after a few episodes, we realized like, guess what? The people we're interviewing are the people that we would love to work with. What if we put more effort in building that relationship post show?
I think the feeling of growth that happens, and you've experienced it right in the last 6 years. You know, we mentioned this when you came to our show, and I think that's something that more people I feel like need to experience because it has helped us in so many levels, not just the business, but personally, right? Like in our relationships, in the connections, not only with the people that we connect on the show, but also personally. So we're like, okay, what's next for Contents Profit? What's next for Biz Bros? Is how can we put this in hands of many more? And we don't know what shape it's going to look like. We've talked about an internal network. We've talked about a group. We've talked about coaching. We've talked about these things. But here's the thing. This is the exciting thing. There's opportunities, right? And the feeling of having opportunities is something that we've never experienced before at this level. And we're like so excited to see where it goes. So that's the vision. Is right now we're at a place where luckily we're really good. We have the team we're executing on the service side of things. But when it comes to the podcasting, we're like, we have a massive opportunity that we're announcing on the 23rd that we cannot just announce. You might know a little bit behind the camera, but once that's announced, that's game changer for us. And with this, and it's proof of concept of this thing really works. So hopefully we can show it to more people.
Dude, that's huge. And there's so much to learn from what you guys just talked about, right? First of all, the authenticity of what you bring to your show. And I said something very similar to you guys, where I had the most fun I had on a podcast in a very, very long time, if not ever, as a guest. And the way you guys introed and the way you guys are very much authentically and vulnerably yourselves, right? You make fun of yourselves. You have a good time while you're doing it. You bring your knowledge to the game. All these things across the board is what makes a podcast successful, period. That's the part people miss. They want to get into the podcast game and they want to be the next Joe Rogan or they want to be the next whoever. And the reality is you can't be the next them because you're not them, right? But you guys can be the first Biz Bros, right? You can be the whatever, and I can be the first Justin, right? And so, look, I've had really good success in podcasting. Am I in the upper echelon? No, but I'm pretty damn close, which is pretty neat to talk about, right? But when I say that, I don't ever go out and try and be the best podcaster. I just show up and try and be the best Justin every single day. And that's really what you guys are all about, right? And you take that authenticity, you build strong relationships, and then you go towards the opportunity. Not every opportunity works out, right? Whether that's working with the individual or potential partnerships or whatever. I mean, I think we talked about this when I was on your show. During COVID, I jumped into 5 different opportunities, 3 of which failed, 2 of which are still going. And so that's what opportunity is, right? You can say yes to more things and see what sticks, what doesn't stick, and so on and so forth. So I love that. And so as you guys are building these relationships, what's the end game? Like, I know you said you don't really know, but from a relationship standpoint, and I think I already know your answer, but from a relationship standpoint, what are you guys trying to build here?
Yeah. My heart goes to, I hate calling it a network because we just had negative experience, right? But with other networks on the show side, but, the ultimate, the impact, like what's the positive impact that we can make, right? And I'm in this, I'm Fonzi, sorry. You might hashtag choke the mic.
I was about to tell you, like, hey, you can take a break while you think about that.
So it's, for me, that's never been an easy question because I've been driven by fear for so long, right? I've been driven by that mindset of it's not enough or we have just enough, right? And I'm recently exploring these things internally, right? With a couple of coaches that I have, and it has been enlightening, right? And one of the questions was like, what's next, right? And I'm in this morning accountability group, is 10 minutes, right? And legit, you go in, you're like, this is my commitment from yesterday. I did it. I did not do it. If I did not do it, why? How am I going to fix it? If I did it, great. What's next, right? And it has been such a powerful tool. It's just 10-minute call. And one of the things is the why, right? And one of the things that it kept coming to me personally, right, is we come from a third world country, from Venezuela. We were very lucky that we were in a family that had food, that provided, that we got into a good education because our mom, where she works, right? And we have friends, but not a lot of people have those opportunities, right? And there's no access, right? The access to information is very limited. We see it nowadays globally, right? So we're like, okay, how can we impact maybe people at home or maybe people here in a very positive way so they can actually be themselves and go out? And I think publishing allowed us to do that. So at a like macro level, that is the general direction personally that I think we are probably going to be going, right? And again, I think this is the first time Fonzi hears this, by the way.
I was going to say, that's a good answer.
But strategically, I don't know yet how we're going to get there, right? But the thing is, like, we know that that's a place where we want to go, whether that's through soccer, whether that's through podcasting, because soccer has been a big element in our lives, right? Whether that's through entrepreneurship, through coaching, I don't know. But those are all the opportunities that are up there on the table to go and impact.
Yeah, I think mine, to kind of like bring it down a little bit. That was pretty good, by the way. That was really good. I like listening to that. It was, for me, I see it as I want to have the coolest friends. Honestly, I just want to build the coolest relationships with amazing people that are doing great things. And honestly, we realized this after a few episodes. The best way to do that is by showing up authentically at the end of the day, right? I personally, a lot of my thought process when I was growing up was on what are other people thinking about me? So I'm going to give you an example. It's super silly, right? But every time I would have a soccer game and I would have a party after, for example, in high school. I remember myself thinking, oh, if I do good in here, when I go to the party, people are going to think I'm pretty cool because I score a couple goals, right? So it was kind of like that all the time. Yeah. And that just drips into other aspects of your life, right? So with business, it could be, oh, if I have a podcast, I can gain that status, right? I can be really cool. What are other people going to say about me? And I remember as we started operating, I feel like we've been pretty good at just being ourselves. And I started letting go of that stuff a while back. But I remember we were sitting in this room in a mastermind and they were talking about the attractive character. And for us, it was like, well, there's only one attractive character. There's two of us. How are we going to do? So we raise our hand and we ask them, hey, should we only pick one of us to be the attractive character or can it be both of us? And, they knew what they knew. Again, they're very successful, but all they've heard is there must be one attractive character. And they said that. They told us, you need to pick one. One of you gets to be the attractive character. And we're like, oh, man, like, okay.
It didn't feel good.
Yeah, it didn't feel good. And we're like, okay, I guess so. But then when we started the podcast, we're like, let's be yourself, right? Let's authentically be yourself. We want to have a conversation. Like you said, like we knew we had a good dynamic talking to each other, and we just kept that going. And all the feedback has always been very positive. So we look back at that and we're like, okay, well, that advice obviously came from, the bottom of their heart, best intentions, but it wasn't always the right advice. And then by performing the two of us together, not performing, just by having conversations, the two of us together here in Content is Profit, we realize, we get to be ourselves, and it's a lot of fun. We get to meet cool people and actually befriend them. And then when we go into the real world and we actually see them in person, guess what? It's the same person that they met through the podcast. Because that's the thing. If you're not being yourself here, when they meet you in real life and there's a disconnect there, they're going to be turned off and they don't want to be your friends anymore. And then they're just going to go somewhere else. So that for us, at least personally for me, has been huge. Is that mindset of, I want to come off, authentically as myself and literally build friendships. Because at the end of the day, some of these opportunities turn into business, right? Let's be 100% honest and transparent. And guess what? There's no better people to do business with than friends, people that you trust, people that you're excited to jump in phone calls with and talk about their progress or their challenges, see how you can help each other out. So that's my point of view on that.
Like it.
Yeah, I feel both of those answers. And it's so funny, Fonzi, when you said it, I just want the coolest friends. I had a moment, took me back to 2019 when I had a live event before COVID. And throughout the event, we had the speakers, then we had some panels, and I was the MC of the panels and all that stuff. And there was a moment where it just kind of hit me, and I stopped and I looked at everybody in the audience. I was like, I've got really cool friends. I literally said that on the stage, and it was like, everybody was like, yup. It was one of those crazy, it was like one of those crazy moments where I was like, wow, these people are my friends and they're absolute rock stars. And it was really, it came from a place of authenticity, and it's so true. When you say that. And so I want to ask both you guys this question, something I ask every single guest on the show. It's a two-part question. So the first part is, what's your definition of success? And the second part of the question is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
The bus going your way.
You said the bus that way. Yeah. All right. For honestly, I don't think I've ever sat down and defined, okay, what does success means to me? And this might sound very cliche, but for me, it's like, I want to be happy and reduce my levels of stress. Obviously, I want to have that financial freedom that allows me to do what I want to do, right? I also grew up with the idea that work was just work, right? That, man, if you're working, you're not enjoying life. And that's something that I've been changing my mindset a lot on, which is, guess what? Maybe work is life. Like, how fun that we get to do this, right? To get a bunch of cool friends, right? So that for me, it will be, success would be, okay, how can I find something that I'm happy while I'm doing it, and at the same time is providing for, not just my loved ones, but also for myself as well.
Yeah. And what are 3 things?
Oh, 3 things that I do. You see, that's a challenging thing.
That's why you got him. That's why you got him.
I sit down and work.
If you need a second to think, I can answer my first part.
I think that just answered it, right? If I'm being honest, I personally been struggling to build certain habits around my life to support certain things. For example, there was a moment, I would say the one thing that I mostly do every day is I read, I just grab a book and just read pages. But I have this thing that I call win the day, which the whole idea is, at the end of the day, I'm going to open my notes and I'm going to write down what I'm grateful for, my thoughts on the day, and my to-do task for the following day, right? And I'm going to be honest, it's very on and off. Sometimes I do it 2-3 times a week. Sometimes I don't do it ever. So I don't want to lie here and say that I'm super consistent with all these habits. I'm still trying to figure it out. And there's been a lot of habits that I see from other people that I'm like, oh, I would love to do that. And I would love to do that. And that is one of my biggest challenges, I got to admit. And my girlfriend can attest to this, but I'm super excited with everything that I see. And I'm like, oh, I would love to do all this stuff. And then I try some stuff and I rarely stick to something for that long. But lately I've started to believe that, hey, you got to find your own how, right? I cannot always see what other people are doing. And then, okay, let me just replicate that, because guess what? That might not fit within my capacity or the resources that I have at the moment. So I think that is going to evolve in a way, obviously, as we keep growing as people. But I'm focused on, okay, what are those hows for me? So guess what? Maybe win the day is something that I actually got from somebody else, right? So maybe I got to turn it into my own. How do I turn this into something that I do for myself, that I actually enjoy doing it, and that I stay consistent with it?
That's a good way to avoid his question, though.
No,
but the good news is,
I'm kidding.
the good news is you finding a way to make it for yourself. You'll be excited about it. So,
yeah, exactly. And
the one thing you won't be excited about is putting your girlfriend's photo in the A game thing. You know,
absolutely. Photoshop. Let's clip this and send it to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to be honest, right? Because I could come here and say like, yeah, I journal every day and I have this gratitude practice every day.
Well, you have me to fact check you.
Yeah. Now thinking about it, we actually do a gratitude round with our team every single day that we work with them. But yeah, I want to be honest, right? And come here and we talk about authenticity. I'm not gonna come and lie about 3 habits that I don't do.
Totally, man. And what about you, Luis?
Definition of success, like Fonzi, never really sat down to it. I don't know why. As he was answering the question, I'm like, maybe is it because we're too close to it? We're too close to the action, right? Growing up, success was playing professional soccer, right? That clearly didn't happen. We were very close, but it didn't happen. So we had to redefine the whole thing.
Now we're gonna be professional referees.
Yeah, professional referees. Today, right, like it's to me has been a lot about family, right? Success is like, do I actually have the time to spend and enjoy time with Luca, right? And my second kid that's gonna be born in a month, right? Success means having our family close by. They're still in Venezuela, so do we have the resources and a way to bring him and keep him close to us, right? So to me, that's where it's shifted a little bit, right? It used to be a lot about all the money and all the thing, and that clearly didn't work out the best way possible. And when we made that shift, things started to fall in place and move forward. So that has been lately my definition of it. About the 3 things, just like Fonzie, right? Completely honestly, like there's a few things that I've tried. What it has like stuck lately in the last few months has been putting things in my calendar, being very, very serious about the time slots in my calendar, very conscious. It has gotten better and better every single time, to the point that a month ago I started time tracking literally to the minute. So I'm like, I'm a little bit obsessed at the moment with that. Sunday I spent 2 hours kind of forecasting hours and seeing what it is. A lot of people might sound very boring, but for me, like it makes a difference because it allows me to free up 3-4 hours that I can spend with the family, and then hence to the definition of success, right? The gratitude round that Fonzie mentioned is a must in our team. At first, all of them were like, what the heck are we doing?
They resisted it.
They resisted it.
Yeah.
But as the days and the months went by, it's a thing that we have to do, and everybody does it, and it's incredibly powerful. So those few things are helping me a lot lately.
I love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, let's get to the important stuff. How do people find you? Where's the best place for them to go? How do they hire you? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you listen to podcasts and love podcasts, like I assume you do, you can go to Content is Profit, literally in your search bar right there in your favorite explorer. You'll find us on social media at BizBrosGo. That's us. You can also go type Luis Camejo and decide which one is better looking and text that one.
We have a campaign. We have a campaign going on. It's called Pick a Bro. So whoever bro was your favorite today, make sure to let us know so we can rub it in each other's faces.
Yeah. And I promise that's us. There's no VAs behind that. That's us answering. So that's the fastest way. How to hire us? You can also send us a DM and be like, hey guys, I want to learn a little bit more about what you guys do. And we're happy to share all the secrets.
I love it. Like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. So this is for both of you guys. So you could both answer separately. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
I can pinpoint a few.
To me, lately it has been this, like executing on content, like publishing. for us, it takes shape as a podcast. This has been a massive driver of growth personally and in the business because of the people that we've met. We learn lessons every single week, 3 times a week. Like we say, if there's the world shutting down, this thing doesn't stop, right? Because we've seen the benefit, and we've seen best practices. We've seen tactical advice. We've seen like connections that we talk on the other side that means so much and makes us see something that we haven't seen before and get better at it. I credit my relationship with my wife today to a lot of the things that we learn in this thing, because we implement, we have a conversation, and it's better than ever. So to me, that's so powerful. And so the last 2 years, if you want to put it as a one moment, the last 2 years have been that for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of that, and say if I look at Fonzi 2 years ago, it would, and both Fonzi's today's and 2 years ago have a conversation, I think it would be crazy, right? Like the amount of growth that I've experienced, kind of like that gap would be huge from the 2 years ago me to today. And also, like my brother mentioned, right? Like you just consistently getting in touch with incredible people, new ideas. Something that I love is questioning beliefs. So you hear stuff that you might not agree at first, and then you're like, why I do not agree with this? And then you start going down rabbit holes, and you're like, let me question my whole existence and life. And that's how you grow at the end of the day, right? We're not just going off of this autopilot every single day, but now we're just learning and implementing. And honestly, I will say 90% of it is thanks to the podcast, the platform, and having these type of conversations.
I love it, fellas. I'm so stoked that we've been connected, and I want to call you guys friends for the rest of my life. Yes. I love your energy. I love what you bring to the table. Thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing your story and your wisdom and your one name with my audience. This has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.